You're welcome. Thank you.
How early in the process for doing one of these do you just is it the decision made to kind of go in the direction of like a JLU style or do with the continuity with that's already been established?
This one was a little unique. It started off not as a JLU movie completely. It literally started off with me sitting in a room with Alan Burnett and Jim Krieg and Brian Jones, and we said, oh yeah, they want us a Justice League movie for next year. Or we said, okay, so what do we do? And we had no idea. We had no story, and we looked through the DC Who's Who and said, okay, what villains haven't we used? And we said, Fatal Five. I like the Fatal Five. And so that's basically what we had. So we handed that off to Eric Carrasco. We called him in. He said, that's the movie. It's Justice League versus the Fatal Five. Go. And he came back with a pitch, and we liked it. And at that point, my plan was to do the movie in the Phil Barassa style, which in my head meant going back to the Crisis on Two Earths models and the models they had done for Dune, because I didn't want it to look like the current New 52 movies that my friend James Tucker is doing. And I thought, well, it might be still similar. People might get confused, but it's okay. We'll just do it. And at that point, we hired the cast. We recorded the cast. We had the great good fortune of having Kevin Conroy and George Newbern and Susan Eisenberg coming back as Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. And then James Tucker found out what we were doing. He said, don't you think people are going to get confused about the look? They're going to still think it's part of my New 52 movies. And I went, yes, you're right. So, I mean, I knew in the back of my head it wasn't going to work, but anyhow. So at that point, we were already 2 weeks into production on design. And so we were already like late. So the only choice at that point was to use the old Justice League Unlimited models. And then we had to do a little bit of adjusting on the script, which we fixed in ADR. But from that point, it all just kind of fell into place. And so it was, like I said, it did not start out intending to be a Justice League Unlimited movie, and it just kind of backed into being one.
So is this in continuity with JLU, or is it just sort of similar?
It depends. It depends on who you talk to. If you ask me, I would say yes, it is. I consider it to be in continuity. There's nothing in the movie. There's some weird things in the movie that people are going to go, well, how can it be in continuity if this and this and this? But my answer is that it does not take place 3 days after the end of Justice League Unlimited. It probably takes place a year or 3 years after the Justice League Unlimited.
Even things that are in continuity don't always line up.
That's exactly right. But again, my out is that it takes place sometime, like a year or 3 years. And like I said, a lot can happen in a year or 3 years. So that's it.
Earlier you mentioned Crisis on Two Earths.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the premiere for that one, I think at Haley Center. And I think I remember someone asked about, like, there was a character, a really obscure character we squeezed in there who we actually gave a speaking line. I think it was a Marvel family character. I think I want to say Uncle.
Oh, Uncle Marvel?
Uncle Marvel?
Yeah.
Is there a character like that in this film? Is it Mono or another character?
I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Is there a really obscure character I guess you never would have imagined?
Not really. Not really. No, it's not that kind of movie. It's not really an Easter egg kind of movie. Unless, well, okay. Okay, I can't say.
Now I'm excited.
There may be a Legion of Superheroes character that people are not expecting to see. So we'll see.
Now I'm very excited. Now I can't wait to see it.
Or two.
So when you're like dealing with the Legion of Superheroes in this movie, I don't know like what the lead time for the movie is, but like Supergirl, the TV show, used a bunch of these characters. Now,
yeah.
Do you have to coordinate with them on who you use, or is there a synergy of like kind of they use this, so let's use this guy because people will know who he is? Or do you like try to avoid the characters that they used, or is that even a concern because you're way far ahead of what they're doing? Like, is there any corporate thing going back and forth saying you can't use this guy?
No, I mean occasionally things like that happen, but it usually only happens when we're in conflict with the movies. You know, sometimes we'll come up with a storyline based on a famous comic or whatever, and then we'll find out, oh no, you can't do that because they're doing that in the movies. And then they don't want to have the competition. You know, they want to own that thing. You know, for that window. But for the TV shows, nah. I mean, it's too hard to coordinate between all the different shows, between Gotham and Supergirl and Flash and Krypton or whatever. It's just like nobody really cares.
Or like, do you see them do something with a character and you're like, oh, I like that. Let me try my own thing, or I've never thought of that, or does that inspire you in any way?
I have no shame in stealing a good idea. If somebody does something good with a character, I'll be happily steal it if I think it's a valid thing to do. But the honest truth is I don't really watch a whole lot of the other shows. When I go home at night, the last thing I want to do is watch more superhero shows. So I don't watch the DC shows or the Marvel shows or anything. I watch like HGTV and the Food Network, So
I like Cupcake Wars.
yeah, I'm a big Triple G fan. So
Take over, does this kind of new era, this sort of streaming model era, does it interest you? Do you think? Can you see these movies moving to more toward the streaming outlet?
Oh, you're a late.
Do you think that's?
you mean directly? I mean, they are. I mean, when this movie is going when it streets, when the physical thing streets, it's going to be on the streaming
I
service
guess for
the day and date.
DC Universe, for exclusively
Yeah.
for DC Universe.
Yeah, right.
Maybe not so much streaming video on
I
demand.
like how they have
I don't know. I can't predict. Who knows? We're in the wild west of new technology for TV. So 5 years from now, it's going to be way different than any of us ever expected it to be.
But I'm curious. Going back, I mean, you worked on shows going back to the Fox Kids era.
Sure.
So what's it? Do you ever have to like pinch yourself looking back on like what you guys were doing back then to where we
Sure.
are now?
When I think about it, sure. Oh yeah, when I think back on it, it's like, yeah, we used to cut those shows on a moviola. It's like when I think about that, it's like, oh my god, that seems like the Stone Ages. But yeah, it's strange. So I mean, everything about media has changed. I say that all the time. Is that we were lucky that Batman came on when it did because there was really nothing else like it on TV. Whereas nowadays there's tons of stuff competing for your attention, superhero-wise and science fiction-wise and quality animation-wise. But back in the day, there really wasn't all that much stuff. So we kind of had the superhero TV genre all to ourselves, So that was great. But yeah, nowadays, I was thinking about that. I mean, not even just our show, but even like when the first Batman movie came out, what a worldwide sensation that was. And even though movies come out and they're big hits and they make shitload of money, it still doesn't have the same impact that first Batman movie had on the entire media.
Changed everything.
Yeah, it did. So it's just interesting. So.
I'm also curious for your method, Bruce. When you draw now, do you like to draw like on a tablet, or do you still like to draw on paper?
I am so old school. I don't even know how to. I don't even know Photoshop. So yeah, I'm all paper.
Because I've seen some artists. I've seen them start to adapt more toward like the digital tablet.
Most everybody at Warner Brothers draws on a tablet now. I'm like one of the 4 or 5 people who still draw on paper.
Not that there's anything wrong with either. Whatever you prefer.
Until they stop making pencils.
Or paper.
Yeah, that too.
Can you speak to a bit of how this, like, the changing landscape of media, in particular, more streaming options, and even going back to more direct-to-video options like Warner has been doing, how has that affected the creative process in terms of, like, when you would work on a show and then it was over, it was kind of like, okay, that's it, move on to the next thing. Now you can, like, oh, I might want to play in this universe a little more. Does it make it easier to go back and say, let me do this, or do you have to like fight the temptation to want to go back to do something else that's in that kind of universe, or does it just come up as an accident like this movie did?
This was a total accident. A lot of it is just timing, the whole thing with Young Justice coming back, that was all kind of a fluke as well, the reason they got their belated third season was because the show was released on Netflix, and then suddenly it was like one of the top-rated shows on Netflix, and then it was like everybody's like, oh yeah, we forgot how great the show was, and it's like they should do more, and then somebody in corporate said, yeah, why don't we make more of those? And that happened to be right when the DC streaming thing got up and running. They said, let's do more YJ for the streaming. So it was just like a lot of happy accidents lining up. So you just never know. Some things just like kind of hit and have heat, and sometimes they don't. I mean, I know people talk to me all the time, like, oh, when are you going to bring back Batman Beyond or bring back Justice League Unlimited? It's like, well, it's not really up to me, but so you just never know.
What do you think of an idea of working on a crossover between Justice League and Masters of the Universe? Considering you were one of the original artists for the 1980s mini comics, I would love you to be involved in that.
Didn't float my boat, but
Okay.
sorry.
I'm very excited about the TMNT one they're also showing this week.
Good.
Hasn't He-Man and Justice League been crossing over since?
It's in the comics, I think.
Superman was in like the first comic issue.
Oh, that's right.
DC.
That's right. That's right. In the free comic or the whatever, the extra
There was a more
bonus
recent.
comic.
There was a more
They just
recent.
did Injustice. No, they just wrapped up with Injustice. That's the Universe. Six-issue
I
miniseries.
gotta check that one out.
There's a long history.
Is there someone in the universe that you wanted put in, but just it's never felt right to use in a movie?
I want to say yes, but I'm having a hard time thinking.
Azrael.
No, I'm not a big Azrael fan.
Aztec.
Oh,
Wait, he was in it. I'm sorry.
Aztec? Yeah, he was in Justice League Unlimited.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. It was not that there was ever anybody that was like, oh, I got a burning desire to do this character, but you know.
like how come Lobo never got like an animated solo movie during this whole run?
I don't know. Good question. I don't know.
There was a web series.
It was.
Back in I think the late '90s for Lobo.
Yeah.
There was like a Choose Your Own Adventure Superman show that was in 3D CG, and there was a Lobo series.
Yeah, it was the same time they did the Gotham Girls
Yep,
series.
I
Yeah.
remember that. I think that's like after Dialogue, but like close.
Very close. Very close. Yeah.
It's like old internet, almost old internet days.
That's true.
So what? I guess can you talk about what like your project you're working on after this one? Not yet. Nothing you want to tease?
I'm literally not allowed to. So something cool. Something cool. People will like it. Some people will hate it. Like all the movies. Anything else?
Bruce, I just want to personally thank you. You are not one in a million. You're once in a universe. You are once in a multiverse. So thank you.
Thank you.
Should we get detailed?
Yes.
All right.
It's gonna make me cry in a minute.
We got one question.
Okay. I think they were done with their questions a while
Oh, okay.
ago.
Then come on along.
Okay. Thank you.